I assume we're live. I saw a PogChamp in chat.
All right, let's go.
Alright.
Hey guys, you got Gato Roboto here, any percent.
Yeah. I am Shed. I'm joined here by OddBod. We're going to race, and we are also joined in the call by Shredberg, who is going to provide some commentary, as this run can be pretty active, pretty high pace, so we need some help explaining tricks and such.
I'm ready whenever you are.
You want me to
I
get...
am also ready. Let's give a countdown, Shred.
All right, let's do it in 3, 2, 1, go.
Chile Jeff.
YouTube. So first things to explain right off the bat, we're a cat. We're going to run around. We can't really do anything besides run and jump. We can also swim. You can also note that we're skipping the dialogue pretty fast. There's a couple binds you can hold to automatically advance all the dialogue as fast as possible.
Shouts to Cullen.
Yeah, that wasn't there. And that really, quite the time save. It was like 20 seconds. Plus, just like not having to mash was really nice.
I complained about my wrist hurting too much to the developers, so they eventually did it just for us speedrunners. Thank you.
So now we're not a cat. We're a cat in a mech suit, and we can shoot and have more than one health.
Yeah, so for the most part, it just run this. There's a lot of platforming in this run. For the most part, really, what they're going to have right now is they're going to be trying to get rockets. Right now, they really just have like a pea shooter missile, but they're going to go get rockets, which is going to really start to unlock a lot of the sort of core mechanics of the game. But a lot of the game really just comes down to a lot of really tight platforming. Right now, it's just run and jump, pretty straightforward. But the game builds on itself continually, going through each of the upgrades that you get.
Yeah, I guess we should talk about, for the people who haven't played it, that this is indeed a Metroidvania, so we'll be picking up items along the way. Although, honestly, the Metroidvania aspects aren't too much showcased in this one. It's more about movement.
Yeah, as you'll quickly see, we have a lot of movement and skips and tricks and glitches and such that we can use to basically cut out all of the exploration in this game. Not to say that it's not good exploration. If you play this game casually, it's pretty fantastic, actually.
So I kind of missed to talk about it, but something you might have realized in the arena portion, where potentially, like, unintuitively, we wait between shots to hit enemies. And it's because every enemy has a lot of invulnerability frames when they get hit. So, you know, intuitively you might think, okay, you just want to mash shooting as fast as possible, but no, really. You actually want to time your shots. Yeah.
Shred, you want to talk about small mech?
Yeah, so small mech is a really weird glitch that happens. So what you do is you, while you're in the mech, which normally has, it's a 2-block height that you'd need to go in through any sort of corridor, while the cat goes through 1. So what you do is you go over a save point, you eject it, you go back in your mech, and you eject it right the perfect moment. I believe it's frame perfect. And what happens is the game thinks that you're in the mech, but gives you properties of the cat, at least in terms of the hitbox. So you have a single block hitbox that allows you to go into any corridor that the cat would get into, but also allows you to have rockets. You still have 6 health, all of those things. So this is where the game allows you to do a lot of funky things as well, because the game thinks you're a cat still, which the way that the game is programmed, there's several rooms where bosses won't trigger. We actually immediately skipped a boss that took about 30 seconds or so. So that was already skipped. It just lets you go through the room. We're able to get places that we're not supposed to. It causes a lot of funky things. Just, again, you need to go over a safe spot and then just eject at the right moment, and it gives you a weird property.
Yeah, the thing about skipping enemies is that certain enemy arenas and certain bosses are just not triggered when you enter them as cat, and the game in certain aspects still think that we are cat, so. And that is, of course, because, as Shred said, you want to save and eject at the same time, so the game ejecting puts you in cat state, saving puts you in mech state, do both at the same frame, and the game does some weird stuff.
Also coming up, I don't know if Otto's already done it, but we have water mech, which is a method to get the mech underwater. We normally can't do that.
Yep, you're shooting your rocket to make your mech suit go backwards, but you're also ejecting at the same time to get you out of the suit. So your mech goes underwater. When you hit the plane of water, you'll take damage, but when you're actually underwater, you're fine. So if you land on top of water, that's when you get hurt. Being underwater is like right there before OddBod had gotten hit by water with the mech suit. Normally that's what's going to happen, but when you eject at the exact right moment, you're able to get underwater. That allows us to skip. Right now we're going towards some like treadmill valve type things to try to lower the water level. This is a pretty big skip right here where we're actually doing them out of order. This one is supposed to be, I believe, the second one that
This is the last one.
This is the last one.
The last one. Okay. Yeah. So we do them fully out of order, and it's a lot faster to do it this way.
Yeah, so normally maybe you saw in the first one, it was this like submarine type looking thing. You're normally supposed to play that entire, like this dungeon with that submarine. So we get out of your mech and then use that underwater, but yeah, we can sequence break out of it by using the normal mech underwater. And normally you would get the ability that's about to come out, double jump, at the very end of the dungeon. But of course, with our sequence break in this, we now get this early and it saves a lot of time.
And the biggest thing too with the double jump is it allows us to do really fast rocket boosts. So we've been rocket boosting a lot of the game, but those were pretty small. When you do a double jump, you are allowed to really chain momentum off of that. So each rocket boost, when you go off of that, gives you speed. Right now, if you look at, on the left, technically you can do 2 in a row. It doesn't exactly work out to 2 because it's mostly time-based in terms of how you can do your rockets. But for all intents and purposes, it's 2 rockets. But we're going to be using those to shoot us across, get a lot of momentum, get through the game as fast as possible, climb things faster, just all-around faster movement.
You really can get a lot of speed with it too. It's pretty nice and really fun to use. It only really works if you're in that double jump state, though. The short version of what we're doing is you double jump and then let go of movement inputs and shoot a rocket, and that lets you preserve the recoil that the rocket gives you.
Yeah, essentially being in a double jump state makes you like more susceptible as opposed to any sort of
slidey.
Yeah, exactly. Weirdly. Like floaty, slidey. Like it just gives you more some momentum, have more impact on you.
Oh, this room's hacking me. Okay.
The frog one?
Yep.
And now we're gonna get small mech again. Make sure to not soft lock that with a small mech.
Yeah, we can talk a little bit about it. It'll come up in a bit later, but some of the places we can get to in small mech, it's really hard to get back out of again. So it's really easy to soft lock sometimes. In particular, there's one area of the game that if we die or eject by accident, it's just run over, pretty much. There's no getting out of it.
Yeah. Also, I guess we never really talked about the impact of small mech, I suppose, but for like casual people who haven't seen this game yet, this might not seem as big, but small mech is like the single biggest glitch in this game, we should say. Like, it saves around like 12 minutes-ish.
Just seeing the run, you don't realize how many things that we're skipping right now. There's at least one like major boss that we're skipping. There's the room with the turret that where normally that turret would be going back and forth and shooting at you, but because you enter with small mech, it just stays there. It's a lot easier to kill it, so that saves time there. There's just a lot of things like that where normally either you would have to do it entirely or just the properties of it would change, but small mech changes everything in terms of how things pop up, what pops up, where you can get to, all of that stuff.
And it shifted the focus of the run a lot, I would say. Like, before we used to, of course, fight a lot of bosses that we now skip. It was a lot more about, fighting. Whereas now it's very much mostly movement-based.
Yeah, there's a couple of fights you have to do later in the game, but the vast majority of the run is just movement now.
And probably for the better. Movement in this game is very slick.
And when we get to the bosses, all but one boss pretty much was made a lot shorter using small mech.
Also, I guess now so I didn't talk about it, but earlier we entered this thing, the Nexus, from which we access the aqueducts. So there's 3 major dungeons, and we have to do them at some point, which is also why after acquiring the double jump, we still had to clear out the water, even though, you know, we didn't actually need to clear out the water to progress through the dungeon. So that was the first dungeon, the aqueducts. Now we will go next to Heater Core, and then after that is vents. You saw briefly there was this like little robot thing. It had three sort of displays. We need all 3 of them to be check marks to access sort of the final phase of the game.
Yep, and Heater used to have, before Small Mech, used to have 2 bosses. But now what we're going to do is we're going to, because we're Small Mech, get into a small platform, or a small corridor rather, where it just brings us right to where the trigger would be, or a room after the boss, or one of the bosses of this level.
Yeah, it's 2 mini bosses and 1 boss for clarity.
Yeah, so
we're basically skipping like 2/3 of the area just by going through that one small gap. The gimmick of this area, Heater Core, is that you're not allowed to eject from the mech. So we, because it's too hot for the cat, is the flavor of it. But we came in here as Small Mech, so we have the 1 high hitbox and can get through that gap.
Yeah, and a lot of the place is designed around the fact that, you know, a lot of the shortcuts that you would normally take to go backwards because eventually you can go here as a cat when you play this casually, once you clear the mini-bosses. So a lot of the dungeon was designed around the fact that, you know, you will have shortcuts later on as a cat you can go backwards, and we essentially just take these shortcuts to go to, you know, where normally you would take them from, so to the end of the dungeon. So right here we're going to pick up Coolant, which is one of the items that will be at the very end of the dungeon, which increases the bar for, like, the heat bar, I suppose, the overheat bar. So, you know, effectively it says we can shoot more missiles, which is quite neat for both movement and damage.
Oh yeah, with the 3 missiles as well, or that you would have in quick succession, you wouldn't be able to do Small Mech in the next section, Vents, without it. It's actually almost like the perfect height to get there, because if you only had 2 at the time, you wouldn't be able to make it. 3 is like just enough to make it up there. So everything with Small Mech it seems to just kind of work out, which is the coolest part about it.
Also, there was a triple rocket boost to see how mad that like momentum carryover can be.
Jeez, that just boosts so
yeah.
much.
Did you get Phase Rush yet, or am I that behind? Or am I not?
Yeah, I got
behind?
Phase Rush.
Dang it.
Which,
no,
go ahead.
Phase Rush is the next skill we're going to get. It's really, really good. It's a dash. It basically replaces all of the rocket momentum storage stuff we've been doing so far, but it's really fast and fun to use still, so...
Yeah. I think it's one of the cool things about this game is that, like, as you get more abilities, like, the movement drastically shifts. Of course, like, in a Metroidvania, it's always going to be the case to some degree, where as you get more items, your movement, or, like, the way you play the game is going to shift, but I feel like in this game, more than any other I've played, it's like the way you optimize movement with, you know, let's say the rocket boosting we did, compared to now when we have to dash, is completely different.
So normally in Vents, OddBod went over to to the left. Normally you'd go over to the right. There's like a whole big thing. Normally you're just the cat the entire part of, well, the better half of this run. And then you get to this boss. Normally you fight the boss as just the cat. You have to go to the sides, and those are like missile laser type things. But like you're just able to beat the boss in like 10 seconds because you're in the mech suit, and the game doesn't, you know, expect that to happen. So Vents went from like what, 5 or so minutes,
something like that,
a minute and a half, at just the quickest part of the game.
It used to be really hard too. There was a difficult skip that I'm glad is gone.
Oh yeah.
The Vents skip.
That was, it was funny is it made people upset for like a full day. It was like, oh, this
this run's dead. No one's gonna do it because there's tricks in the run, and then we found Small Mech. It doesn't matter.
That's exactly true. That trick we used to find a strat to sort of exemplify how hard that strat is. We have a strat where you like pause buffer certain frames, like it's like a double frame perfect thing or some shit. It's very hard, and everybody was upset, and yeah, now it's just gone. But yeah, Vents is definitely the most ruined by Small Mech. Like we just skip to the boss completely. And now
there's a small.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a small skip that saves like 2 seconds. That
not even.
Yeah, it's like a ridiculously small amount of time. But normally you'd press a button there, you'd talk to the guy that has the 3 check marks on him, and he'd say, "Hey, go back to the ship, and you need to grab the decoder in order to get down here." But you can just use some rocket boosts, and you can just get into the ship anyways without it actually being open. Normally, it'd be blown open and have an opening for you, but the trigger for that's actually always there.
I hit the button by accident, so I don't have to do early decoder, but I'm going to anyway because it's more fun. But yeah, it saved 2 seconds before we had fast dialogue, and now we have fast dialogue, so it saves like half a second, maybe.
Yeah,
Right now,
nothing.
the holy grail would be to get that without needing 3 rockets, because from what I understand, that's what you need right now is 3. But if you were able to, well, actually, no, you would need to do it before you even get 2. No,
Yeah,
if
you
do
need double
rockets.
jump and 3 rockets. You need both, sadly.
Yeah. So if
Or
you had
dash.
2 rockets, though, you should be able to save time, I believe, because you wouldn't need to go back to Nexus. You would just already have the code, you know, theoretically, but unfortunately, that's not possible.
And
So
so
also accidentally hit the button in the ship, so you get some extra story that went by really fast.
This is where the game gets, in my really, really difficult in laboratory. There's a bunch of enemies. There's a lot of difficult platforming. There's plenty of save spots to where if you're wanting to be safe, it is relatively straightforward. But you know, speedrunners, we don't want to waste time 3 seconds on saving, so it can become a big risk. Luckily, there's some things that are made easier, like entering this room here where there's all these turrets and enemies.
yeah, this one was the
luckily-
worst before Small Mech, for the record. This one
yeah.
was so bad. And now we just skip it pretty much. We still have to kill the things to trigger the final transition. There's like an iron gate that guards the screen transition, but like as you saw, like it disables the AI of the turrets, so it's way easier now.
Yeah, now there's only like 1 room in this end game where I really am not a fan of it, or really just it's difficult. Going back to the save, huh?
Yeah. Didn't want to risk it.
Sorry, in a race, yeah.
Here's another like small water section. Normally you're supposed to like hit your mech on these conveyor belts at the top, and then use the submarine to unlock buttons, and then use the conveyor belts to get your mech over, yada yada yada, and of course it's skipped by underwater mech, so that saves another like, I want to say like 20-ish seconds.
Yeah, I
Something
think
like
it's
that.
closer to 30. It's quite a bit. Or maybe I was just slow. That's another possibility. And then we're just about to get, the elevator portion of the game, which is probably the hardest part of the game. It works a little strange in terms of time. Essentially, it's going to wait for you to kill all of the enemies that are about to pop up there in order to get the next ones. It can have multiple sort of phases at the same time, but the game still waits for you. And at the end of the elevator, the game, it seems like it has different cycles. Think of like, I guess it's similar to like a frame rule in Super Mario Bros, where it will wait and pass a certain amount of time before it actually ends the elevator. So there's cycles. So depending on how fast you get through it, you're gonna save.
That's not even the worst part of elevator, because there's these like phases to it, and the last phase is always completely RNG, so you can just kind of get screwed up by that alone.
Yeah, everything up until this point and that I'm doing right now on my screen is completely set. Other than the frogs dropping at the start. There's always gonna be frogs dropping, but you don't know where to drop. But yeah, this is what Chad mentioned now, is everything now is random.
At least the frogs, you can kind of like, there's air quotes consistent things you can do to speed it up, to
Yeah.
adapt, but
This is at least not as bad in any percent, like... God behold everybody who dares to play low percent, and if you got a lot of the frog droppers in the final phase, like, you can say goodbye to like 20 seconds. And now this is the final section, the laboratory. We do one final small mech, the final one of the game. And now this is sort of the final gauntlet of the game. There's a lot of arenas, a lot of movement. It introduces a lot of new enemies that haven't been like in the game at all. It's like, I think like 3 completely new enemies that
heck,
all are
the
really
punch
hard.
guys.
Yeah, mainly the punch guys are really bad.
Yeah, those guys, there's a way to like fast kill them, but it's really inconsistent on whether or not you'll get it. So you just kind of set up for it, and then
There is? I didn't know that.
I mean,
Oh.
yeah, you can like stun them. So when you hit them on certain frames, and then if you shoot and rocket at a certain pace, they'll just stay there, and you can do more damage. Also, you can get close to them like OddBod's doing, and just make sure that you're chaining as much damage as possible.
Yeah, that fast kill is not nearly as trivial as it looks. Like they just have like very specific frames in animation where you can hit them opposed to where you cannot hit them. It's very weird. Like they're not vulnerable during their entire animation at all. It's like very specific parts of it.
What's funny is in 100% you get an ability where your pea shooter just auto triggers and it's really fast. So it makes like a quick kill for those things just trivial, but in any percent or any other category really it's not easy. They're really tricky to deal with.
Yeah, you can stunlock them with that ability that Shred mentioned. And especially in 100% too, actually this is one of the sort of bad things about small mech is in that vents normally there's an upgrade for your shots that like doubles your damage, but because now we skip all the vents we never get it. And whereas before we found small mech we used to get that and it made the any percent run way easier because we dealt double damage, but oh well.
Also made elevator a lot easier because the frogs were one-shottable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alright, so normally on this is like the second to last boss that they're on, is that you'd normally be fighting it, the ship would be in the air and floating around, so you just do a certain amount of damage. I know it's 31 missiles, I believe, that you shoot, and it takes 32 missiles worth of damage. But so what they're going to do is just enough damage to where they can do just one missile and then it's dead.
And
right
if you
when
don't,
the
the game crashes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you do too much damage before the boss spawns, the game just crashes.
I'm kind of sad that this fight got trivial. Like, this was one of my favorite fights, and I'm sort of sad it was trivialized by Small Mech, but oh well.
I hated this fight.
Really? Oh, dang.
Yeah, I'm glad it's gone.
There's so many good things about Small Mech, though, that I can't complain. Like, Small Mech definitely made this route way more, like, interesting and just sort of fast-paced, but that's the one part I'm sad about.
And the final boss, this boss is actually really difficult. Especially you only have 6 health. It jumps somewhat randomly, not entirely, but it's just very difficult to make sure that you don't get hit, and try to get it to where you can still hurt the boss. It's a pain, but OddBod's gonna at least try to set up. Let me see. I have a little bit of.
Yeah, I did get it.
What that's going to do is normally you are in your mech gets destroyed during this sequence, and then so you would run to the end of the game without a mech suit or anything. The cat is notably slower than your phase dash.
Wait, very quick, save or kill, Shred. Save or kill.
Save.
Okay, go ahead. I'll listen to Shred.
Gotta save the dogs. Come on.
No.
You could finish that before the dog hits. But you could see in that ending sequence that there were 2 mechs because, as Shred said, like, you're normally not supposed to have that, but if you shoot the rocket at the same time you eject, then you can kill him while you already ejected.
Yeah, let's see if Shed gets it.
Getting hacked.
Yeah, this bot. There's a way to. It's pretty slow.
That's not what I wanted.
There's a way to make the boss like trivially easy, but it's slow. I wish it wasn't because. Oh,
you mean a double jump thing?
It's really dangerous if you exit your mech suit before you do it, because Cat has 1 HP. If you get hit, you're just done.
Fortunately, you're invulnerable while getting in or leaving the mech, so you can use it. You're not as. It's not as dangerous as it might look.
Oh, true. Yeah.
All right, I'm killing the dog.
No, don't do it, shit.
Bye.
Oh no. It's gonna be up. Somehow he just, at the end there where it shows your IGT, he's still there, but I like to think that he's kind of upset that you left him back.
It's the ghost dog.
Yeah.
Rip dog.
What'd you end up with, Odd?
22 flat. What do you get?
Nice, 23-13.
Nice.
I will definitely take that, even if I lost the race. Pretty solid.
Yeah, very solid for both. GG's, guys.
GG's.
GG. And yeah, that was Gato any percent. Again, I can wholeheartedly recommend this game both casually and speedrun wise. Go check it out.
Yes, absolutely. It's pretty short for a casual run. Like my 100% casual run was like 8 hours or something like that, and then obviously any percent's like 23% or 23 minutes, so it's pretty
Also,
good.
I think the game's like, isn't it like an $8 game or something?
Yeah,
super-
it's
Yeah,
really
it's-
cheap as well.
yeah,
stupid.
very worth it.
And I just want to give another quick shout out to the devs for being absolute G's. Listening to the
Yes,
speedrun community.
definitely.
Best
The
devs you
dev
could
is-
possibly wish for speedrun.
They're active in the speedrun community. They've been very, very helpful and added like fast dialogue and rebindings and everything. It's been great. Shout out to the community as well. There's a pretty good group of runners and such. We also have a randomizer, so that's pretty neat. Yeah, good stuff. Thanks to Valuethon for having us as well.